A Russian military jet crashed today with 92 people on board.
Search teams scoured the Black Sea Sunday, looking for debris and victims after a plane operated by the Russian military crashed 2 minutes after takeoff. The Soviet-built plane belonged to the Defense Ministry. Its flight had originated in Moscow and refueled in the southern Russian city of Sochi before taking off for Syria. All 84 passengers and 8 crew members on board are feared dead. The passengers included 64 members of the Alexandrov Ensemble, the official choir of the Russian military, which has given performances around the world. The choir was scheduled to perform for Russian troops in Syria on New Year's Eve. Outside the group's headquarters in Moscow, mourners left flowers in tribute. Search teams found parts of the plane about a mile from shore. They've also recovered a number of bodies. Their work will continue around the clock. Russia's transport minister says investigators are looking into all possible causes of the crash, including terrorism. The plane took off in good weather. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his condolences to families of the victims and called for a national day of mourning on Monday. 9 Russian journalists and a well-known humanitarian and doctor were also on board that plane.
China has lodged a protest with the United States after President Barack Obama signed into law a defense policy bill that suggests a plan to conduct high-level military exchanges with Taiwan. The nearly $619 billion National Defense Authorization Act, for the first time, includes a section on senior military exchanges between the U.S. and Taiwan. China's foreign ministry says it strongly opposes the Taiwan content of the act.
We urge the U.S. side to abide by its promises made to China on the Taiwan issue, stop U.S.-Taiwan military contacts and arms sales to Taiwan, to avoid damaging Sino-U.S. ties and peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait.
Now, China has sent its one and only aircraft carrier to the West Pacific for its first blue water drill. The move comes as tensions simmer between China and the United States.
China's state-run Xinhua news agency reported on Sunday that the Chinese Navy has sent its first aircraft carrier to the Western Pacific for a blue water training exercise. It quoted Navy spokesperson Yang Yang, who said the Liaoning was headed toward the Western Pacific after holding drills in the East China Sea without elaborating on the exact location of the drill. The exercise comes at a time of tension between Beijing and Washington over U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's recent telephone conversation with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen. Taiwan's defense ministry said it spotted the Liaoning in the Miyako Strait, a body of water between the Japanese islands of Miyako and Okinawa, as it headed toward the Pacific. The Japanese defense ministry also spotted the Liaoning along with several other Chinese vessels passing through the same area, but said there was no territorial incursion. Last month, China said its aircraft carrier purchased from the Ukraine more than a decade ago was combat-ready. China has not described specifically how it intends to use the Liaoning, but experts expect the carrier to help reinforce claims over almost all of the South China Sea.
The Russian Foreign Ministry slammed the U.S. for slapping sanctions on Syrian ministers and a Russian bank. The Foreign Ministry said that Washington has completely lost its grip on reality to widen sanctions at a time when deadly terror attacks should bring people together to battle terrorism. It said the move is meant to punish Russia for supporting the Syrian government in its fight against terrorism. The Russian Foreign Ministry believes that Washington's strong desire for regime change in Syria has made it assist any destructive force. On Friday, the U.S. Treasury slapped sanctions on several senior Syrian officials, including the ministers of oil and finance, the governor of the Syrian Central Bank, and 9 members of the board of a Russian bank were also added to that sanctions list.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues to blast Friday's UN Security Council vote condemning Israeli settlements. On Sunday, the Prime Minister called in ambassadors from at least 10 countries that voted for the resolution, including China, Russia, and the United Kingdom. Netanyahu personally reprimanded the ambassadors and expressed his anger and dissatisfaction with the vote. And Israel has recalled their ambassadors from New Zealand and Senegal, 2 countries which co-sponsored the resolution while cutting all aid to Senegal. Meantime, Israel is reassessing its relationship with the United Nations, but Netanyahu saved his harshest rhetoric for the United States at a cabinet meeting on Sunday. The U.S. abstained from the vote, but in the past has shielded Israel from such votes in the Security Council by vetoing those measures. The Prime Minister accused the U.S. President Barack Obama of orchestrating the vote.
Over decades, American administrations and Israeli governments have disagreed about settlements, but we agreed that the Security Council was not the place to resolve this issue. We knew that going there would make negotiations harder and drive peace further away. And as I told John Kerry on Thursday, friends don't take friends to the Security Council.
Immediately after the close of the Sabbath, Netanyahu assured the Jewish nation the shameful UN vote will be countered.
בנוסף, אני הנחיתי את משרד החוץ להשלים תוך חודש הערכה מחדש של כל ההתקשרויות שלנו עם האו"ם, כולל המימון הישראלי למוסדות האו"ם והנוכחות של נציגי האו"ם בארץ. כבר עכשיו הוריתי להפסיק מימון של כ-30 מיליון שקל ל5 מוסדות של האו"ם, 5 גופים שהם עוינים במיוחד נגד ישראל. כבר עכשיו לעצור את זה. והמשך יבוא.
A fake news article that claimed Israel had warned Pakistan against meddling in Syria almost led to a diplomatic crisis after Islamabad's defense minister tweeted an indirect nuclear threat at Israel. Defense Minister Khawaja Muhammad Asif was responding to a news story published on the AWD News website, which claimed that former Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon threatened a nuclear attack if Pakistan sent ground forces into Syria to battle the Islamic State. Asif then tweeted, Israeli Defense Minister threatens nuclear retaliation, presuming Pakistan role in Syria against Daesh. Israel forgets Pakistan is a nuclear state too. Israel's defense ministry responded to Asif's tweet, saying that the statements attributed to former Defense Minister Ya'alon regarding Pakistan were never said. The report that the Pakistani defense minister responded to is completely false.
Iran's military is set to hold drills aimed at boosting air defense capabilities. Iran's air defense chief says the 5-day exercises will kickstart on Monday in 3 southern provinces. According to Brigadier General Farzad Ismaili, the drills cover a vast area of nearly 500,000 square kilometers, including the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. More than 17,000 soldiers from the army and the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps will take part in the maneuvers. Ismaili also says that the large-scale drills seek to ensure armed forces integrity. He has urged foreign aircraft to stay out of the drill zone during the exercises.
A 7.6 magnitude earthquake hit the island of Chiloé, a famous tourist spot in Chile, on Christmas Day. Roads and bridges were damaged and electricity was cut off to more than 22,000 households, but fortunately no casualties have been reported. Chilean authorities say some 4,000 people evacuated from their homes following a tsunami alert. The alert has since been lifted, but Chile's National Emergency Services chief is still suggesting people keep a close watch on things and move to higher ground if they can. Chile has been hit by several earthquakes in the past as it sits on the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire. More than 500 people died in 2010 after an 8.8 magnitude quake jolted the South American country.
The Philippines has begun evacuating thousands of people from its coastal regions as it braces for Super Typhoon Nina. The storm's expected to make landfall in the northeastern province of Camarines Sur on Sunday.
In fact, it'll go down in history now as the strongest tropical system to make landfall in the Philippines since record keeping this late in the season. I mean, 1945, the records go back. They've never seen one in December quite like this. So, yes, the evacuations took place, but there was also stranded people and passengers, about 12,000 of them, in ports that didn't get out in time or thought they could beat the storm. This visual image shows a well-defined eye. It underwent rapid intensification, as we so many times see these just before they move into the Philippines. This one about a 500-kilometer radius, so it's a large storm too. But this time of year is when we really start to see them trail off. But again, I mean, it just goes down in history. This is the first Christmas Day typhoon in 35 years. You got to go back to 1981. That was Typhoon Lee, and that took 188 lives. Before that, you got to go back to 1947. So again, Christmas is a big thing here in the Philippines. There are many millions of Christians. So as they were gathering, trying to get to where they needed to be for family gatherings, this is upon them.
Triggered by extreme rains, the flood hit the city on Wednesday, damaging houses, healthcare facilities, and bridges. The National Disaster Mitigation Agency says more than 100,000 people were forced to evacuate their homes. Power outages and cuts to communication links are hampering emergency relief operations. Authorities have declared a state of emergency until January 4th.
54,000 people have been evacuated on Christmas Day after a World War II bomb was unearthed on a construction site in the German city of Augsburg. Local authorities said that around 900 police officers have been deployed to defuse the 1.8-ton British bomb, an operation which could take up to 5 hours. Augsburg Mayor Kurt Griebe urged residents to move well outside the security zone while experts defuse the device. More than 70 years after the end of the war, unexploded bombs are still found buried in Germany.
Now, the Syrian capital is suffering a third consecutive day of water shortages after foreign-backed militants polluted the water resources there. The government cut off water to Damascus on Friday after terrorist attacks on all water resources feeding into the city and its surroundings. It said the militants have contaminated the water resources into Damascus with pollutants and diesel. Authorities said that they'll use reserves and pump water to various city neighborhoods according to a rationing schedule. An estimated 1.5 million people live inside Damascus, with another 3.5 million living in its suburbs. Now, since the beginning of the war in Syria, thousands of young Tunisians have joined the ranks of Daesh terrorists. And now the terrorist group and its allies are losing the war. The Tunisian people, that is, fear now and reject the return of the terrorists back home.
Following declarations made by some politicians that Tunisian citizens have the right to return home after fighting in Syria, Tunisian civil society activists demonstrated near the parliament to oppose the return of up to 3,000 terrorists.
With the advance and the victories of the Syrian Arab Army and its allies, the global conspiracy against Syria has failed. Now there is an international will from those who armed and backed Daesh to relocate terrorists and to destroy other countries. Those who killed innocent people must pay for their crimes.
Tunisian military officials also reject the return of the terrorists, saying Tunisian soldiers have already paid a heavy price to defend their country against the Daesh terrorists.
Peace be upon brave members of the Tunisian army, the National Guard and police for their sacrifices. Terrorism is a cancer that we must eradicate. Terrorists who join Daesh are traitors. We must remain united to face the scourge of terrorism.
In August 2015, the Tunisian parliament passed the counter-terrorism law following waves of deadly operations. Article 33 says terrorists could be condemned to varying jail terms. Some terrorist offenses are punishable by death. However, the new constitution adopted in 2014 gives any Tunisian citizen, including the terrorists, the right to return home.
According to Philippine police, on Saturday, 16 people were wounded in a grenade explosion outside a Catholic church during a Christmas Eve Mass in the southern island of Mindanao. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack, but Muslim rebels and Islamic extremists are known to be active in the area. According to a police chief, most of the injured had been standing outside the St. Nino Parish Church. Bomb experts are said to be still on the site as reports of another grenade or improvised bomb was also left in the area.
Well, Christmas is coming for the war-ravaged Syrian city of Aleppo. Churches reduced to rubble are preparing to hold their first Christmas ceremonies in more than 4 years after the Syrian army did finally liberate the city from militants.
These seasonal festivities were the first Aleppo has seen like this since the war began. Fearful of anti-government insurgents known for being hostile to minority faiths, Christians in Syria have largely rallied behind the country's secular government during the war, seeing it as their protector. Aleppo is one of their heartlands. For them, the city coming under the full control of the Syrian army is cause for celebration this Christmas.
We did not expect this moment to ever actually come. We've had 4 years of pain, of war and blood. We couldn't even imagine that we would once again see all this joy and celebration.
The season of plenty depicted in Hollywood movies and on TV commercials is far from the reality for many people around the world marking Christmas. For Christians here in Aleppo, it's a time where the loss that they have suffered and the extremely high price that they have paid for almost 5 years of war is felt more acutely than perhaps at any other time of year. In this church, as well as coming for Mass, many have come to receive aid to feed their families this Christmas.
For the first time in 3 years, Christmas bells are ringing in Bartille. Iraqi forces recently retook the town near Mosul from Islamic State. The town was home to thousands of Assyrian Christians, but most fled in 2014 when the militants overran large parts of Iraq. Now residents like Shurut Tawfiq are home for Christmas.
This is the best day of my life. I'm so happy to be back in my area and to my church. No matter what those rats Islamic State do, they'll never keep us from our homes.
Iraq's Christians are emerging from a nightmare. They were harshly persecuted under the Islamic State and given an ultimatum: pay a tax, convert to Islam, or face execution. Bishop Musa Shamali said the celebrations are bittersweet.
Today we're experiencing a mixture of sadness and happiness. We had hoped that life would be back to normal, but Islamic State destroyed many holy places that brought together the children of this nation.
With Bartilla badly damaged, it will be some time before the residents can fully return. But for a few days in Christmas at least, life feels a little more normal in this ancient Christian town.
They're calling it a Christmas miracle at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. An infant from Wisconsin in desperate need of a liver transplant gets the call just minutes after his name was put on the list. Fox 32's Dane Placco reports his family says it's the greatest Christmas gift they could ever receive.
Little Daniel McCabe was dying. The 4-month-old infant had been born with a rare liver disorder, and doctors at Lurie Children's Hospital knew he needed a miracle to survive.
We knew that he really needed a transplant like yesterday.
He needed the liver, and he was dire, and his liver was almost done.
But the average wait for a child to receive a donor liver is 86 days. On Tuesday last week, doctors put Daniel's name on the National Registry at 10:10 a.m. Just 40 minutes later, they got a call.
He was really quiet, and then he said, "We have a liver." And I was shocked. I hadn't even begun to think transplant at this point because I expected to be waiting for a while. I was shocked, and I was just like, I just said, "What? What do you mean we have a liver?" He goes, "We have a liver."
We have a very strong prayer network, and I can only chalk it up, to some kind of divine intervention.
Melody called her husband Joseph, who was in the middle of a business meeting in Wisconsin.
So I go back to this meeting, and they all look at me, and I said, "They have a liver," and it's like high fives. I mean, it was crazy.
Crazy for the hospital staff too.
This is one of the more incredible things that's happened in the 5 years that I've been here. Patients, even in the most critical statuses, can go waiting from a few days to a few months and even a few years.
The liver from an adult male in his 30s was cut in half and transplanted into Daniel during a 6-hour surgery the following day. Doctors say with good nutrition and time and healing, Daniel should be fine. His parents say Daniel is already doing better, his skin now a normal color for the first time in his short life.
Christmas is always going to have a new meaning, and obviously we celebrate the birth of Christ, but and now giving Daniel a second chance, so it's amazing.